Welcome back to the chat room. Our guest for this segment and another segment is, first of all, we have Becky Hill with DeKalb Tech, and we have Kevin Johnson, Director of Emergency Medical Services at Newton General. Good to have you both. I don't know if I've ever met you. You used to work with my daughter. Have I ever met you before? I'm getting senile. I don't even know who I've met in my family or whatever, but it's good to have you all on. And main purpose here today, folks, is we're talking about CPR Saturday, going to take place on June 19th. Let me qualify the time element here. Some of you are going to see this before the fact, some after the fact, because the show runs for a complete month. That's on Saturday, June 19th. And where will it be?
It's going to be at our Covington campus off of Alcovey Road.
Okay.
And in the A building, which is the auditorium.
Okay, off Alcovey Road. Okay. All righty. Now, sudden cardiac arrest. Let's talk a little bit about that, also known as SCA, the abbreviation. Strikes more than 360,000 people every year. Let's talk a little bit about that, a little bit about the emphasis there.
Well, if they're alone and there's no CPR or no help, there's only about a 5% survival rate if no one starts early CPR. And understanding how to do CPR and using a defibrillator are very important. And Kevin's got some information for you later about a young man who was saved at the high school because somebody started CPR early.
High school locally?
Newton High School. Correct.
Newton High School. Football player? Or?
He was an athlete. Actually, it was January 25th. Felt bad, was downstairs playing a pickup game of volleyball, and by the time he made it to the office, he actually collapsed in the hallway.
And I can't remember, did you say he survived?
He did.
Yeah.
Because somebody did they have a defibrillator?
Actually, our EMS response was pretty quick, so before they actually could get to that machine, but that is part of the component. But the school staff, the school nurse, the school resource officer, immediate CPR, all those added into his survivability. Is by the time he collapsed right in front of the school nurse, CPR was immediate.
Do you know, as a follow-up, do you know what the actual problem was? Was it a blocked artery?
For him, it's pretty common in young adults. It's called WPW. It's a heart rhythm that speeds up and eventually causes you to go to cardiac arrest.
Okay.
And it can be easily fixed by a pretty minor surgery in comparison. And they don't anticipate our patient to have any trouble whatsoever growing up.
I went in one time for an EKG in '98, well, for just a general checkup. Did the EKG and found out I had atrial fibrillation. I didn't even know I had it, but they say the main damage, as far as mine is concerned, is rapid race, and I take the Tazac for that. Okay, now.
And that's what happened with him, is he nor his parents knew that he had a medical problem. He just collapsed very suddenly, and if that defibrillator, if Kevin and them had not gotten there with the defibrillator and the people had not started CPR, he would not have survived.
Yeah, that's very scary stuff there. And, you know, now I wanted to ask you, EMS department, the Newton Medical Center, average 10,000 calls a year. That's a bunch.
Right. It is. Of course, with the population growing, we've got I-20, congestion in the city. So we're right at 10,000 emergency calls this year. So it's a busy service, but as that population grows, so will those emergency calls come out.
What are most of the calls, or do you have any figures on that?
It's kind of a wide range. From pediatrics to our elderly population, a lot of traffic accidents, things like that. So we're kind of a rural community with an urban setting, so we have a good mixture of both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you another question and then have to shut you off for a second while we break for our sponsors, but so we'll get back with that. Just want to let the folks know that we have Becky Hill with DeKalb Tech, who's with us, and Kevin Johnson, who's Director of Emergency Medical Services for Newton General. Two very qualified guests to have on here as far as their field, and we certainly are glad to have them on. This is the chat room, and by the way, folks, if you're interested in getting your commercial seen on the chat room, or if you'd like to come in for a business spotlight, as we call it, where we highlight a business, have the person in, like we did Jay James with Honda of Conyers, or either Trey Golden over at Blimpie, we'd like to do that with you too. Let you spotlight your business. There's no charge for that. And if you're interested, 770-634-8286. We'll be back. Welcome back to the chat room. I'm Rich Simpson, your host, and we have in our presence now, we have Becky Hill with DeKalb Tech, and we have Kevin Johnson, Director of Emergency Medical Services at Newton General, and we certainly are glad to have him on because we're talking about CPR Saturday on Saturday, June 19th. Where's that going to be?
It's going to be at the Covington campus, which is off Alcovey. Excuse me, and it's going to be in the A building auditorium.
Okay. And I jumped around here and said, where's that going to be, as if I had not heard the information. And once you started telling me, remember, we covered that the other, let's see, I'm getting senile. You got to remember, you got to remember that. What's the time of that day?
We're going to start at 9, and every hour we're going to have start a new class. It's not for a certification, it's knowledge only, and we're teaching adult CPR and the use of the defibrillator, the automated defibrillator.
Valuable information. You've done
Yes.
this before as far
Yes.
as, and what kind of response did you have the other time?
A lot. We haven't done it in Newton in a long time, but I'm getting great response now. I get probably 8 to 10 phone calls a day for RSVP for this one, so we're very excited.
Oh, great.
Should be a good turnout.
Great, and I hope this will help, being on here. Kevin, let's talk a little bit about cardiac arrest care in general, the importance of knowing the emergency procedures and everything, calling 911. Let's talk about that.
Just like citizen CPR, we've got law enforcement that are trained in CPRs, where's medical responses, our fire services, all these people are trained to support the community. Part of that is what can our citizens do to help in us getting there on time. Early dialing of 911, activate the services. The quicker you call, the quicker we can get to people. Simple things like in an emergency, if it's at night, turn on the porch light. When you go home tonight, see if you have numbers that are reflective on your mailbox.
Right.
You know, little things like that that are essential for EMS, fire, law enforcement to get to you in an emergency. Those things, as well as the value of knowing CPR in a real situation, but just how to act, how to think in an emergency.
Do y'all push those things that elderly or anybody wears around their neck and you push a button?
Right. Those are prevalent. Sometimes there some questions raised about how often they go off, but for somebody around the house who has mobility problems, they can be a big asset.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, you know, do you have numbers on your mailbox? Do you have neighbors with a key if you have a mobility problem? Things like that allow us to get to you quicker. But it's like a cell phone. A cell phone works different calling for 911 than your house phone. And so part of that is knowing your address if you just have the cell phone, because it's difficult sometimes for the 911 operators to find exactly where you are on a cell phone that's not connected into a landline. So things like that, knowing that dialing on a house phone is important, that type of information.
Now, you run the EMS system there, emergency system at Newton General. Do y'all use GPS units?
We have them on some of our trucks. We rely pretty much on our training for maps. Our computer-aided dispatch system through the Covington Newton 911 Center has a lot of information. There's mapping systems available, but we spend some time driving the streets, learning for those, you know, the big shopping centers, learning where the apartment complexes are. And so each time we run a call, we're always watching street numbers and names and things like that. So it's kind of a combination of things to make sure we can get to where we need.
And I'm sure a lot of that communication stuff has improved since
Absolutely.
Mike Smith's new system
Absolutely.
out there. Now, Becky, let's just talk, we've got about 30 seconds, I hate this, about the partnerships between DeKalb Tech and Newton General.
Well, we all see that there's a need out there for citizen involvement. And we, you know, Kevin's EMTs and paramedics can't be everywhere. So we want to teach as many of the public as we can so they can help. And Newton feels the same way we do. It's a wonderful partnership that we feel like the citizens need to be trained.
Okay, one quick question for Kevin. You said you had about 50 EMTs on the street, so to speak. How many trucks do you have?
Right now we run 5, and they are pretty busy. And we run them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So that's why 50 and 5 match up, because they're 24-hour things.
And they're spread around the fire services, some of the stations, some run out of the hospital where the major population is.
Becky, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Kevin, nice to meet you.
Appreciate the invite.
All right. Yes, we're glad to have you folks on. And this is the chat room on Channel 20. We'll be back.